In this episode, we talk about what do you do when you tie for 5th place? Yell about the trans swimmer you tied with who also didn't win, because why not?
Marge threw a party and nobody showed up. Nobody worth talking about anyway.
Wait, the chair of CPAC is accused of groping a man against his will? Color us shocked.
We saw that Irish movie, so you don't have to. I'm still not over it.
Welcome to Full Circle, the podcast.
Coming to you from the dining room table at East Barbary Lane, welcome to another episode of Full Circle, the podcast. A weekly visit to our home where we squeeze a few headlines through our decidedly queer lens and see what happens. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and politicians everywhere who hope you don't know what words mean. Because they clearly don't.
I am your host, Charles Tyson Jr.
And I'm your host, Martha Madrigal. Welcome to the Full Circle table.
Hi, baby.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh my, I was just going through all the news that's not even fit to print.
But yet they print it anyway.
They do. They do. Yeah, it was a lot. And we're sitting here without our Christmas tree.
I did that.
You did that. You took down the tree. It was time.
It was.
It's not special if it's up in February, I guess.
Well, yesterday was, a day off, as it were. So I did a lot of stuff around the house, and the last thing I did was take down the Christmas decorations.
Mm-hmm. Needed to happen eventually.
Exactly.
I gotta are you okay? What was it? The text I got last night from Amberlyn was like, you just sounded a little down. And I'm like, well, read the news.
Right.
Girl. Oh. Yeah, we try to balance it all out, but sometimes it just weighs heavy. It really does.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
We try our best to keep on keeping on.
Some days I don't feel funny. You know? Just feel other things going on.
Yeah.
But Christmas decorations are away, so that makes me happy.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I should jump into the podcast business.
You might as well get that over with.
If you haven't yet, now would be a good time to go wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a rating, a review, or subscribe to us wherever you can. 5 stars or more, please. If you have a question or a comment or a story idea or just feel like saying hello, drop us a line at askfullcirclepod@gmail.com. Follow us on social at Full Circle Pod on Twitter, at Full Circle the Pod on Instagram, at Full Circle the Podcast on TikTok. You can follow Martha everywhere at iMarthaMadrigal. You can see her writing at immarthamadrigal.wordpress.com, and I'm everywhere on social at NeverScared. You should also consider becoming a patron of the podcast at our Patreon, patreon.com/fullcirclethepod. Starting at just the $3 level, you can get all of our episodes ad-free and before everyone else. And then from there, starting at the $6 tier or more, you can get access to all of our bonus content and behind-the-scenes stuff. It's fun over there at the Patreon. And you can also check us out on our Discord channel, Full Circle the Podcast. And podcast business over.
Yay. Good job.
Thank you. I thought so.
So we did have a bit of fun local news. So Ellie Weinstein, who's a friend, and she is the, I want to say engineer, developer and builder, I believe, of Cocoa Press, which is a 3D printer for chocolate.
Yes.
So she has built a business around that all on her own locally in Philadelphia. And look it up because it's fabulous stuff.
It is fabulous.
But she was last week on BattleBots.
Which is just fun.
Yeah, it's BattleBots is on Discovery Plus. and Ellie is on Team Mammoth.
Which makes sense.
And yeah, I'm not giving any spoilers, and I didn't watch the episode anyway, so I have none. But I want to.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah, just shout out to a local, wonderful, beaming, bright young person doing very cool things.
Hey, Ellie, work.
Yeah. Yeah. So you should check out Coco Press, and you should check out the Discovery Plus channel for BattleBots and Team Mammoth.
Yeah.
And we will and see how they do. So there is some good news this week. And there's some news this week. And then there's some other nonsense this week. But, let's start out with Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah, so here's a little interesting thing. So there was a new statue erected as a memorial in Boston. It is called The Embrace, and the artist's name, Hank Willis Thomas. Mm-hmm. And the piece is called The Embrace, and it's actually kind of cool. It's a bronze statue, and it depicts 4 arms in an embrace. Mm-hmm. And it was taken from a photo of Dr. King and Coretta hugging each other when he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
And, you know, it's kind of cool. It's like, it's abstract, but it also is, you know, it's evocative. But of course, folks got silly things to say, including King's own family.
Really?
Yeah. Martin Luther King III approved the piece, but Seneca Scott, Coretta Scott King's cousin, said, "It looks like a penis." I'm like, really? That's what we're doing? Now, from certain angles, if you choose to look at it in that vein, I guess.
I'm not seeing the penis. I don't get that part. I don't get that.
Some people, people with dirty minds and the inability to just access art.
Somebody said you need the source photograph for context, so maybe you do. So maybe put a bronze plaque at the bottom of it with the original photo.
Yeah, but it's not like...
to help the imagination of those who don't have one.
I guess, but how many works of art that have been inspired by other things need to have the source material next to it for you to, quote, get it? You know what I mean? It's like, come on.
Okay, I don't know how many have to have it, but I'm saying if there's that big a kerfuffle, sometimes it's useful.
I guess. I just have a thing about spoon feeding the audience.
Okay. So.
I like it. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Sometimes when we don't spoon feed, we wind up with penis commentary. Just a thought. Just a thought. Yeah, I'm becoming less and less convinced we don't need to spoon feed everything. So I don't think this is an exception.
Apparently.
Yeah. It's supposed to be a call to action and a call to love.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a depiction of black love, which, is not something that's commonly seen in public art.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool.
Yeah, well, sorry everyone isn't happy. That's going to be the theme of this podcast.
What? Sorry
today.
Everyone isn't happy?
Sorry everyone isn't happy. Yeah. But, so it went up. It was probably expensive. And everyone doesn't like it.
Right.
Happy Martin Luther King Day.
Right.
There was an op-ed in the LA Times, and I thought it was relevant. And it calls him a troublemaker because so much, especially of white America, forgets that. So many of us who weren't paying attention, adults, in the mid to late 60s,
Right.
forget that, he was not what some would like to package him to be.
Right.
He was an inconvenient person with very inconvenient thoughts. Like when we talk about his actual position on the Vietnam War, it was not popular.
Right.
And by his death, neither was he.
Right, yeah.
Let me see. This is by Clyde W. Ford. With voting rights, workers' rights, and democracy itself under attack in a deeply divided nation, the man we honor on Monday should not be the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., the convenient hero, soothing the conscience of an anxious America, but King, the inconvenient hero, challenging this country to undergo a radical revolution of values to live up to its ideals.
Okay.
Yeah, when right-wing Republicans fight to restrict voting rights, deny workers' rights, and send a cadre of armed thugs to thwart the peaceful transfer of power, King's legacy is being trampled. This desecration of what King and the many foot soldiers of the Black freedom struggle fought for bothers me. But what bothers me even more is how difficult it is for so many Americans to get beyond the non-threatening King of August 1963 on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, telling the millions assembled of his dream for America. King was certainly a peacemaker, but he was also a troublemaker. And it is King, the troublemaker, we need most now. When Ron DeSantis quotes King to support a bill banning the teaching of racism in American history, we need King, the enemy of lies, who called racism one of the great evils of this nation.
Yep.
When Marjorie Taylor Greene compares King's work to end segregation with her efforts to end vaccination against COVID-19, we need to remember the early pandemic when the disease disproportionately killed people of color, in part because it laid bare glaring inequities in America's healthcare system.
Yep.
We also need to remember the King who decried injustice in healthcare as shocking and inhumane, though some claim King actually used the much stronger word, inhuman.
Well, there you go.
When failed Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake claimed that King would be a MAGA Republican, we need King, the radical hero who was assassinated for fighting against everything that Lake and MAGA Republicans like her stand for.
They did not fix their face to say that.
Oh, yes, they did. You know they did.
Wow.
Where do we find this inconvenient hero? One place is actually where most turn to find King. In his I Have a Dream speech. First, let's remember that the full name of the march that August was called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Let's also remember that at the behest of singer Mahalia Jackson, King ad-libbed the I Have a Dream portion of the speech. The lines of that speech, most often quoted and misrepresented, have to do with the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners sitting at the table of brotherhood, with little black boys and black girls joining hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers, and with people being judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. But King's speech was aspirational, not representational. Those wonderful images of brotherhood and sisterhood were not present in America when King delivered that speech.
That part.
And they are not present in America today. King knew that. He says as much toward the end of the speech when he notes that his dream will never become reality until black men and women in the South have the right to vote and black men and women in the North have something to vote for. He says as much when he implores those in the crowd to go back to the South and to work for these and other civil and human rights, even in the face of great adversity and suffering. just because King dreamed what America could be, did not make it so.
Mm-hmm.
We should also turn to another speech by King, often overlooked and infrequently quoted, to cut through the gloss so often imposed on him now. Delivered at Riverside Church in New York City on April 4th, 1967, the speech titled Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence,
Oh, yeah.
discomfited many liberal white supporters and even those close to him by taking a firm stance against the Vietnam War and in support of poor people, including the Viet Cong, the world over.
Mm-hmm.
So much of this speech rings as true today as it did in 1967, and a few lines stick out as prophetic. On technology and greed, King said, when machines and computers, profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. Ooh. On alleviating property, he said a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. On hatred, King uttered, we can no longer afford to worship the god of hate or bow before the altar of retaliation. The oceans of history are made turbulent by the ever-rising tides of hate, and history is cluttered with the wreckage of nations and individuals that pursued this self-defeating path of hate. And on a path forward, King opined, we are now faced with the fact, my friends, that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. These are the words of an inconvenient hero speaking to our conditions now. If Americans are to rescue democracy from the clutches of totalitarianism, protect the rights of workers and poor people, and uphold the sanctity of voting, these are the words we must listen to and act upon. This is the King we must hear.
Work.
Yeah, that was published in the LA Times. I thought it was a good reminder. I read it in its entirety because, yeah, Dr. King was an inconvenient human being.
Yep.
And that's what we spend a lot of our time talking about. We are inconvenient human beings. Our existence causes, kerfuffle. And so did Dr. King's. So, yeah, as his quotes were liberally cherry-picked and put on display all over Facebook, I would just like to gently remind us, yeah, he was hated in his time by many.
Mm-hmm.
By many. Seen as divisive, seen as a problem that wouldn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's who we've got to be now, queer folks, a problem that just won't go away.
I love the memes. I didn't see them this year, but I definitely saw them last year, where someone was like, Dr. King died for freedom and equality. And there's a black woman screaming, murdered. He was murdered.
Yeah. 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 Was he martyred? Sure.
Right. But he didn't give his life. He didn't sacrifice his life. He was murdered.
He was murdered. He was murdered. I mean, and how many folks... Harvey Milk comes to mind. Kind of knew it was coming.
Oh yeah,
knew it was coming at some point in some way. And as we hear all of these escalating stories of stochastic terrorism, I sit on the edge of my chair to see who they will target next and just how far it'll go.
Right.
Yeah, because we don't like the truth. We don't like inconvenient people. We don't like people who hold up mirrors.
Yeah.
And so it is.
Believe it or not, we're still in good news.
Oh, right. Well, that was good news because the LA Times, put it out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
it's out there in a million different ways. And, folks like Z. McGill, who put together Say He Had More Than a Dream, gave us more of the full picture of the man and what he stood for and how important his messages are today still.
Yeah.
Still. Go ahead. What's next?
So in Britain, they are proposing a new law to ban conversion therapy for LGBTQ people.
Oh, so as I recall, there was one, but then there was a kerfuffle because they didn't want trans people included in the protections.
Yeah.
So then these spineless Tories, if I have the story right, then removed protections. So I guess, are we getting them back now?
Right.
Are we humans again?
As of 2021, trans folks were not included, but the new bill includes gender identity as well as sexuality.
What do you know about that?
Right. Culture Minister Michelle Donnellan said on Tuesday the government would publish draft legislation soon, setting out proposals to ban conversion practices in England and Wales. The bill will protect everyone, including those targeted on the basis of their sexuality or being transgender.
Okay.
Yeah, so the British government said in 2021 it would introduce a ban on conversion therapy for LGBTQ people to prevent abhorrent practices which can cause mental and physical harm, but later decided the ban would only cover lesbian, gay, or bisexual people.
So we're back to being human.
Right.
Thanks, UK. It must not, through a lack of clarity, harm the growing number of children and young adults experiencing gender-related distress through inadvertently criminalizing or chilling legitimate conversations parents or clinicians may have with their children, Donnellan said. Over 24 health and counseling groups signed an updated memorandum of understanding last year agreeing that conversion therapy, whether in relation to sexual orientation or gender identity, is unethical and potentially harmful. Separately, Britain said on Monday it would block a bill, we're going to get into this, passed by Scotland's devolved parliament, that make it easier for people to change their legal gender. So it's like they giveth and they taketh away.
Right. Give with the left hand, take with the right, or vice versa.
Is it colonialism when they're doing it to themselves? Or is that just masturbation? Like, how does that...
That's a good question, actually.
Colonialists jerking each other off.
Right.
Or something. So, I mean, it's in good news because...
Colonizer circle jerk.
Apparently we are back.
Right.
We're people again for purposes of this conversation. We'll see how long that lasts. But until until Scotland actually tries to put some teeth to something, and then they say, not so fast. So, moving on. That was good news, by the way.
Yeah.
Good news. So, this is kind of cool. Minnesota's LGBTQ lawmakers see new strength at the Capitol. Lee Fink and Brian Curran are members of the first queer caucus in the Minnesota legislature. And Fink chairs the caucus. Senator Scott Dibble, who was often the sole openly gay person in the room when he started out in politics. First elected to the Minnesota House in 2000, he was one of just 3 openly queer people at the time to serve in the legislature. The 3, including Alan Speer, one of the nation's first openly gay lawmakers, and Karen Clark, never served together but jokingly referred to themselves as the Queer Caucus. 2 decades later, the jokes are over. 12 LGBTQ lawmakers came to St. Paul this month following historic elections. Minnesota House DFLers formed a real caucus, including the Capitol's first transgender lawmaker and first non-binary member.
Hey.
Yeah, the legislators say they are prepared to flex some of the new political muscle to secure access to health care, protection against violence, and other priorities for LGBTQ people. And on Wednesday, a bill to prohibit conversion therapy will get its first hearing in the House Human Services Policy Commission. This is how change is made, folks.
Yeah,
we
it
need to
is.
be in the room making the laws.
Yep.
To have a dozen out queer legislators sitting here giving a voice to these issues that affect our lives is nothing I ever imagined, Dibble said in an interview with NPR News. We're in the room. We're at the table. The House DFL Queer Caucus marks the newest point on a 50-year arc from Spears' 1972 election and his 1974 decision to say publicly that he was gay, to the state's move in 2013 to codify same-sex marriage swiftly after voters rejected a constitutional amendment to ban it. They will focus on healthcare access, equality, and banning conversion therapy. We are stepping into this space for the first time. No one like us has ever been there. That can be concerning. I will be honest, I'm nervous. I'm often scared. I know that having this caucus around is something that will allow the work we do to move forward. Protecting queer youth in Minnesota is a top mission, she added, noting that conservative groups have pushed in the past to keep discussions of gender and sexual orientation out of schools. We just need to safeguard the rights that we have in Minnesota for our community to access health care, to live fully and safely and without fear of violence. These problems aren't some other state's problems. These issues are right here in Minnesota, and we need to be prepared to take action to protect our community. Queer people are everywhere. Every issue is a queer issue. There are more than a dozen LGBTQ lawmakers now among the 67 senators and 134 representatives in the Minnesota House and Senate, and the House caucus accounts for more than half of that. They won't post a full roster of members since some have not said publicly that they are in the queer community. Leah Fink was sworn into office on January 3rd, representing the Democrat Farmer Labor Party. She joins 11 state legislators who won their election in the midterms. She won with a great margin and then won with 81% of the vote against her opponent. Last year, more than 300 anti-queer bills passed through state legislatures. And while only a handful made it into law, they have detrimental effects. Already a minimum of 58 anti-queer bills have been introduced into this U.S. legislature, with about half in Texas alone.
Damn.
Yeah, so for the first time in a decade, Minnesota's government is a trifecta for progress. The state's Democratic Party has a stronghold in the governor's office, the state Senate, and state house. This means moving queer protections forward with less than a pause. We can push forward. We can say this is a priority for our community, and we want it to be heard with an expectation that it will follow through, at least on the House side. Good news.
Right.
Good things happening in Minnesota. And it's a good example of run for office, kids. If you ever have an interest, you know.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah, because things are changing, and getting seats at the table is one of the important ways that we change them.
Indeed. So protesters at a drag queen story hour were met with a rainbow wall protecting the attendees.
I saw that.
Yeah, I like when the community gets together and is like, no, we're not taking your nonsense. Protesters at a drag queen story hour in Baltimore, Maryland were met with a rainbow wall blocking attendees' view of their hateful signs and chants. The event, hosted by the Canton branch of Baltimore's Enoch Pratt Free Library, reportedly drew 80 people who came to hear a local drag performer read on Saturday, as well as some 24 protesters and 70 counter-protesters.
Right, so it was almost 1-to-1. There were 70 counter-protesters helping to form the rainbow wall.
Right.
to allow peace.
So across the street from the church on the square where the event was held, the protesters were there and they were holding signs with things like cancel drag queen story hour and drag queens belong in clubs, not libraries, and you call it story time, we call it grooming. Like, I feel like they just, pick the words out of a hat and put them on their signs.
You know what talking to kids does? You know what exposing them to the fact that queer people exist does? It creates fewer bullies.
It's true.
Like those people.
Yeah.
Back to where are the adults? Yeah, it creates fewer bullies. Teaching them that other people exist and don't live exactly like them does nothing other than, those kids that are already trans and queer feel seen.
Right.
And, those kids who aren't learn some tolerance and some respect for people who aren't just like them.
Yeah.
And clearly, it's a message that still needs to be taught. Mm-hmm. And they're fighting against it so hard.
As hard as they fucking can.
Yeah. Yeah, they will lie about us.
Supporters of the event held up umbrellas, flags, and sheets to block the signs while playing Disney and Broadway music to drown out protesters' chants of leave our children alone and let our kids be kids.
That's how we do. And we are trying to let your kids be kids. And we actually want to see them all grow up.
Exactly.
All of them. Because sadly, we know some of those queer kids, their parents are out there protesting.
Right.
God help us.
I saw a meme recently. It said, we're not trying to turn your kids queer and trans. We're trying to turn our queer and trans kids into queer and trans adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a nefarious plan to keep children alive and support families who support one another. Nefarious. The library finds its drag queen book readers through the National Drag Queen Story Hour, which vets and trains its readers. Drag Queen Story Time wasn't about rearing a child to become a drag queen. It was a person in character reading and doing exercises with the children.
That's all.
The children loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Around the room, there were black parents, Asian parents, white parents. It was an inclusive atmosphere. This is not a political issue, but a human issue. Quote, today in Baltimore, we showed them that hatred and discrimination have no place here, said Aya Dammons, founder and executive director of Baltimore Safe Haven. Hate tried to organize and shut down this event. State Delegate Luke Klippinger, of course a Democrat, who also attended the event, wrote in a Twitter post, the hate failed, we won, and always will. I mean, this is allyship.
Right.
This is allyship. Is showing up and, create a wall. Don't let these things happen. Stand between these ugly, hating, loudmouth people and the families that are just trying to, live.
Right.
And let their kids know that they're seen and heard and that they matter. So, if you're a fan of decency anywhere, get between them.
Right.
Get between them. Because these haters, they're bullies. They're just bullies. They're common playground thugs.
Yeah.
Who apparently never did grow up and never did find some reason to live beyond trying to
tear down other people.
Yeah. Right. It's really, it's disturbing. It's disturbing.
Because really, what are they're fighting against? Play, reading, music, dancing, costumes, fun.
Yeah.
How sad must their lives be?
I don't know. Maybe they'll go home and watch Mrs. Doubtfire.
Again.
Freaks. But that was good news.
That was good news, which is where we are.
The Rainbow Wall.
Yes.
Good news. Good news. I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah.
I would like to see more sign-up sheets. I would like to see more people, more churches who claim to be affirming.
Right.
Get your ass out there and stand between innocent children and, Drag queens reading stories and fun for children.
It's called Being Who You Say You Are.
Age-appropriate fun for children. And these hateful voices. Right. You know, I mean, at least when I was little, like, the shit mostly came from other kids.
Right.
Snot-nosed, ignorant, didn't know better, nasty
Paste
kids.
eating.
But not, you know, I mean, obviously what their parents said at home carried forward, clearly. But we didn't have adults gathered outside of, you know, things screaming like this then.
Right.
Over this nonsense.
Right.
Over this utter nonsense.
It feels too much like those videos that I've seen of, like, when two kids are having a schoolyard fight and then the parents are standing on the side yelling, yeah, kick ass, beat ass, like that. Like, what are you teaching? Mm-hmm. What are you teaching?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The good news is, I guess, that everybody isn't like that.
Right.
Thank God.
Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I like soccer.
This is why you like soccer.
One of the reasons why I like soccer.
I didn't know you liked soccer.
I love soccer.
Oh, okay. That's why you're always watching it on the television.
I mean, if you put it on, I wouldn't complain.
You like the idea of soccer.
I'll watch it without complaint.
Okay, it's not something you pursue. I was just
right. When I think of sports, I think of soccer and tennis, and swimming and gymnastics and figure skating and rugby. Well, I think of rugby players. That's different. I've never actually watched a game of rugby in my life. But anyway, so in London, Chelsea welcomed the English Football Association's decision to make a homophobic chant aimed at its supporters a punishable offense. They called it a step in the right direction on Friday. The FA, the Football Association, announced on Wednesday that chants of "Rent Boy," which have been directed at Chelsea fans by rival supporters, are now considered a breach of its rules. Rent Boy.
So wait, they're calling each other Rent Boys?
Yeah.
Huh.
I guess because you can't say, slurs.
And do they know what a rent boy is? I'll bet a lot of them do.
Oh, I'm sure. The Rent Boy chant is intolerable and has no place in football or anywhere else, Chelsea said in a statement. That opposition clubs can now face disciplinary action if their supporters engage in this discriminatory and offensive behavior is a step in the right direction. Everyone who chooses to participate in this chant must know their actions have consequences. There have been allegations of the chants being made in recent Chelsea games. The Football Association strongly condemns all offensive, abusive, and discriminatory chanting in football stadiums and is determined to stamp this behavior out. These chants can have a lasting and damaging impact on people and communities within our game, and it must stop. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I agree. The return to civility, go simmer with that in your own house.
Yeah, because soccer fans can get ridiculous.
Well, the story I thought you were going to tell was Mexico or Mexican fans got fined for their behavior at the World Cup.
No, I missed that.
Similarly, yeah. Yeah, there was a thing. I read it and I kind of went past it because for some reason I thought we were talking about the same story. Yeah, there was like $108,000 fine or something levied.
Good.
Over some ugly chants.
Yeah, because soccer fans, I've seen them be very, very racist. Like, don't let the opposing team be full of brown people.
I mean, Charles, we're from Philly. We have Eagles fans. Are you saying soccer fans can be worse?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Not by a lot, but worse.
I'm just trying. I'm like, really?
I mean, if you start...
I mean, we know women, we know professional white women personally who have been expelled from games.
Yes. But not for saying homophobic or racist things.
No.
Just for generally talking shit and being an obnoxious
right, they are
sports fan.
shit talkers. So maybe that is the difference. They're shit talkers.
Right.
Not necessarily homophobic, racist shit talkers, but boy, can they talk smack.
Yes.
And get removed from a game.
Yeah, they consider
I think they get removed more from baseball games because there are more of them and they're less expensive than Eagles games.
Right.
I think they figure out how to keep their mouth shut at an Eagles game.
Right. Yeah, they see it as a point
I'll have to ask.
Of pride to get kicked out of the Phillies games.
Yeah, and then pictures of them outside the stadium. It's kind of funny.
I'm like, okay.
If it wasn't so sad. These are adults. These are educated adults.
Child.
Like, what is wrong with you? And they're like, just stop. It's fun.
Don't get me started.
So soccer fans are terrible and racist.
A little bit.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And ugly and homophobic and...
I've seen a long history of that.
Then I guess that explains what happened in... I have to look it up. It was... Let me see if I can find it. FIFA investigated chants by Mexico fans at the World Cup. FIFA.
Yeah.
FIFA, Fifi, whatever it is.
FIFA fofo.
And penalized Mexico for offensive chants. January 13th, they sanctioned the Mexican Football Federation for the offensive chants the country's fans made during their matches at last year's World Cup by ordering it to play a game behind closed doors, fined at 100,000 Swiss francs, which is $108,000. The disciplinary committee has fined FMF with a fine of CHF $100,000 and one match to be played behind closed doors.
Wow.
In light of chants by Mexican supporters during the Mexico v. Poland and Saudi Arabia v. Mexico World Cup matches.
What did they say?
The sanction will apply on the next official match played by their senior men's national team. They have been sanctioned on several occasions because of a shout Mexican fans make before the rival goalkeeper clears the ball. I don't know. Mexico will play Jamaica behind closed doors on March 25th in the Nations League. So it feels like the parents are being penalized for the children's bad behavior. If I got that right. Because this is about the fan. This is like fining the Eagles for what the fans do.
Right.
Which isn't necessarily a bad idea. I mean, I don't know how many stadiums have their own courtroom. Ours does.
I was getting ready to say.
I don't know how common that is.
Wait, we have a whole courtroom too?
Yeah, there's a courtroom.
I knew there was a jail. I mean,
well, there's a whole thing. There's a judge, I believe, a judge and a jail. at Lincoln. I mean, I have never had personal experience, but yeah, at Lincoln Financial Field.
I'm picturing the judge on the bench with
that's how bad our fans get.
With the robe and the hat with the 2 beer cans on either side.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like that. I'm not sure he's like an actual judge, you know. Maybe he went to father judge. I don't know. There's a dude. Yeah, who like, I don't know, mediates these issues. And I guess, I don't know, decides how long you're going to spend in football jail.
Football jail.
Like, is it the whole game? Do you have to come back and spend the next game in the jail? Like, I don't even know. I don't know how it works. I'm just saying, I think we're unique in that. So it seems interesting to see these kinds of penalties because, dear God.
We are unique in that.
I'm not saying the Eagles could possibly ever go broke paying fines for their fans, but it would be interesting to see.
It would put a dent in the coffers.
So, they can't control some of their players, let alone.
Right.
Whew. Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, so I had seen that they just came down with this judgment. So it's $108,000 because your fans are rude, apparently.
Right.
Huh.
They don't call them hooligans for nothing.
I want to know who we can sue, for a lot of this shit. Like the gender crits. Who can we go after? Just Britain? JK? Can we sue her for what she has wrought?
Ooh, a class action lawsuit
Yeah.
against JK.
Yeah. And her minions. Like, I don't know. I don't know how this works, but, if the sports league can be fined because their fans don't know how to behave, I see a list of people here I'd like to go after.
Right.
Libs of TikTok. Like, that for everything that leads back to you, you're paying a fine.
I like it.
Yeah, it might shut their ugly lying mouths.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. We might be onto something here.
Write that down.
Because I was always one of those parents that this will cause some controversy, I'm sure. But like, I was always one of those parents, folks in the city like to float different things. And I was always at those meetings to listen. But, this idea that if you have a problematic teenager, underage teenager causing destruction and mayhem among your neighbors, that the parents be held accountable.
Yeah.
And I was always kind of in favor of it.
Yeah.
Because I always assumed it was my job as the parent of an underage to know where they were and who they were with and what they were doing. That was my job.
Yep.
Parenting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's how my parents did it.
Right. Right. So, I'm not, I think we should explore this idea.
I'm down. Raise your damn kids so we don't have to.
I just think it's funny. It's like, your fans are bad, so you're paying a fine. Huh.
Right.
So how do they correct it?
Do
they give out a list of what they're allowed to say and not say? Like, or will expel you from games?
And who's monitoring this?
Right. Do they have little monitors walking around?
Hey, language.
Right. Like, I just wonder. I wonder how this all works.
It's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, I find a lot of sports fans to be hideous. Hideous.
Yeah.
In what they'll say and do. But it's an interesting concept. Like, who can we hold accountable for?
I'm just picturing
So I guess it's like holding the concert venue. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
If people get too rowdy, responsible for their concert goers. Does that happen?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I was thinking my mom.
Or the band.
Because she would get loud and rowdy. I mean, mind you, this is like us in the house alone.
Right.
But, the worst I ever heard her say was like, stop him, you asshole, stop him. Just
right.
that. That's, and we're in the house, so he couldn't even hear her anyway.
Right. But and then what if like somebody, I don't know, randomly showed up at your front door and smacked your father in the face?
First of all, that would not go well.
No, I mean, he was a cop with a weapon, but
right.
My point stands.
Right.
Or like they smack you because your mother, like, I don't know, yelled something they didn't want to hear.
Yeah, that would go worse, I think.
I'm trying to picture how this all works. But,
wow.
Yeah, apropos of nothing. I just, you put it in good news. And
I did.
What was the good news part of it again? We're messing with them.
But you can't just yell out homophobic shit in public without consequences.
Well, you can, and there should be consequences. There should be.
That's all.
I mean, it's one of the things I feel about like cameras everywhere, and I want them all to have sound because, like, hey, it's helping with the Capitol riots. Everybody's there taking their pictures, and that's how they've collected a lot of these insurrectionists.
Yep.
Yeah. Who, whether they knew what they were doing was a crime or not, they know now.
If you don't know, now you know.
Yeah, you should have figured that out before you went. But yeah, so interesting. All right, so that was some meandering good news. Let's see if this goes better. It's time for...
Sad and Roya, people taking pleasure in your pain.
It is.
Yes. This motherfucker's name just keeps coming back.
I know.
He is like a Pez dispenser. Like, I don't... What am I trying to say? Like, I don't know, a gumball machine, like a what's a thing that just keeps giving and giving and giving?
Gonorrhea?
Yeah, he's like that. But like, if it came out of a slot machine or some, I'm not. I'm sitting here wondering, by the way, if George Santos has trouble in the airport because of his, the two knees he had to have replaced while playing soccer. I think it was soccer. For the university he never went to. He has vivid details about the games he played against Yale and Harvard and how he needed to have his knees replaced.
I mean, I'm sure there was some activity involving his knees and soccer players from Yale.
Maybe.
But I don't
know.
Maybe. Yeah, we still don't know.
We should ask his wife. She's still around. They only divorced in 2019. Yeah, so so he appeared at a Brandon Straka event. You have to tell me who that even is.
In 2019.
Under an alias.
Yes.
Oh, this was 2019. So this is not recent. This is just more of the same.
Yeah, this is a video that just surfaced. So Brandon Straka is a gay New York hairstylist who founded a group called Walk Away, which urges queer liberals to leave the Democratic Party.
And go where?
To the dark side.
And go where? To the Republican Party where they hate you?
Right.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a strategy. It always works out well.
Uh-huh. So he is seen on camera introducing himself as Anthony DeVolder. He was like, so my name's Anthony DeVolder. I'm a New York City resident. I've recently founded a group called United for Trump. So if you guys want to follow, that would be awesome.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you're...
Apparently he even did a Q&A.
Yeah,
Oh, he said trans people could benefit from a trans conservative activist educating them.
Yes.
It's gone very well with Caitlyn Jenner. So yeah, okay, good, but fabulous idea. Keep that coming.
Girl.
Yeah. Brandon, you're an idol to all of us. Thank you, he says to Straka. What is wrong with these people?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
I wish I knew.
They're not letting you in the house. They're not.
That part.
Oh my God. They'll fuck you out in the woodshed, honey, but you are not coming in the house. They can't even get a little fucking kiosk on the floor of the Republican convention in Texas. Not a kiosk. A kiosk like you would give to, I don't know, somebody selling cell phones. The log cabin Republicans. Nope, not you. Nope, not you. How many times do you have to hear that? Like, is it a fetish? Maybe?
It very well might be.
Is that what... Because, sometimes I feel like we conflate things a bit too often. Like, I will fight for your right to love whomever you love. I don't want details.
Okay.
Like, ever. I don't. I don't. And if I do, that's what Pornhub is for. Like, I don't want to hear it from you personally.
Right.
I'm just saying.
So yeah, that's just because there's more chickens coming home to roost. That's why it's in Schadenfreude.
There's more of them.
But there is more because apparently...
He has said he will not resign unless 142,000 people, which we're getting close, which is the number who elected him, asked him to.
All we need is an online petition.
Well, here's the thing. James Comer, the House Oversight Committee chairman, said on Sunday, he's a bad guy.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not up to me or any other member of Commerce to determine when he can be kicked out for lying. Now, if he broke campaign finance laws, then he will be removed from Congress.
Yeah.
Same difference.
Actually.
Yeah. He has refused to resign, even as pressure has grown from within his own party. And he said he will only vacate if he loses the next election. More than a dozen Republican officials, many of them from his district, have demanded his resignation. But apparently, if they can prove, and I don't think it's going to be so difficult to prove that he broke campaign finance laws.
Yeah, really.
First of all, just tell us where that $750,000 came from. Let's start there.
Yeah. I want to see the receipts.
Yeah, the hits just keep on coming. Yeah. Apparently, there is talk that top-level Republican leadership did know about his lies prior to his campaign and chose to be complicit. They chose to say this was okay.
Doesn't surprise me.
So, yeah.
I mean, McCarthy knew.
Yeah, it's looking that way. Like, nobody's looking good in this.
Well, yeah, and there's no way to look good in this.
And because he won't just go away,
right?
It makes them all look worse and worse and worse and worse. And not a party that more richly deserves it. So enjoy.
It's like they all stepped in the same shit, and then now we get to watch them pretend they don't smell it.
Right, and you know what? Whether he's actually gay or not is really, fine. Let's assume he is.
I'd prefer if he wasn't.
Well, I would prefer that too, but I don't care. Right. I don't care. This is betraying public trust.
It's beyond that.
You decided to run for office and you have betrayed everyone's trust with your lies about your resume and your lies about your family and your lies about who you are and who they are and what you've done and where you've worked, and everything is a lie. You're a grifter. And I don't care how you identify. You are such a stain on the United States Congress right now.
Right.
And his political party has absolutely nothing to do with this. First of all, the man should be a Democrat. He's a queer. But that aside, it doesn't hurt that he's a Republican. And he is really glaringly showing us what does it take?
Right.
What does it take for there to be any ethics in the Republican Party today?
Yeah. What's
it take? What does someone have to do? Really? Because he's done pretty much all of it. So, at what point is it where is this line? In a Congress that has Lauren Boebert and Marge Green and Kevin McCarthy, for the matter, and all these other asshats and all these insurrectionists, what does it take?
Where is the line?
To say you are beneath the dignity of your office. Where are the adults? Another thing that's kind of fun is Margie Green held an anti-trans rally. Not a lot of people came.
What?
Looks like she might have had 12.
Right.
Green, the Republican from Georgia, held an anti-trans rally at the Capitol this week. 12 or so people attended, and no major media outlets covered it. Thank God.
Right.
Because stop covering this shit.
So just her Facebook Live. Otherwise, we wouldn't even know what happened.
It was a veritable who's who of contemporary transphobic trolls, including members of the book-banning parents' rights group, Moms for Liberty.
Boo.
I think there's 2 of those.
Right.
Members of the anti-LGBTQ conservative, quote, think tank.
Yeah, right.
The Heritage Foundation. Detransitioned young adult right-wing media darling, Chloe Cole. This is a person I have not read much about. All I can say is right now they're right in bed with the gender crits and, those trying to erase us. So, yeah, bad deal. If you ever, splash your face and get out of it, give me a call.
Right.
Let's see. J.K. Rowling fanboy Chris Elston. Conspiracy theorist James Lindsay. Sexually harassing comedian, in quotes, Alex Stein. And, of course, Marge.
So it's less of a who's who and more of a who?
Yeah, they held signs proclaiming children cannot consent to puberty blockers. Sure they can. Of
course they can.
All it does is a pause. That's all it does, honey.
Right.
Just a pause, and they can consent to a pause. Yeah. In conjunction with their parents and their doctors. And it's not a permanent thing. Jackass. Gender ideology does not belong in schools. Oh, yes, it does.
Of course it does.
Oh, yes, it does. And signs that defined the words mom and dad as a human parent who protects kids from gender ideology.
A human parent.
The kids are the ones bringing up the gender ideology, as it were, in the first place, because, they reveal who they are. We don't make them who they are.
Right.
That is true. Because if we could decide who we create, we wouldn't have people like this running around.
Yep.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't exist. She brought the transphobic sign that hangs in front of her congressional office. Freak. The demonstrators were calling out policies that push for minors to have access to puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, not true, and sex reassignment surgeries, also not true. I mean, technically minors can get cross-sex hormones once they're of age to go through puberty, but that's, again, there's not a chiclet dispenser anywhere.
Right.
That just says, you can't go to 7-Eleven for it.
Right.
It's not like getting Viagra. It's harder than that.
Ding.
No policies are pushing minors to undergo any of these treatments. Surgeries aren't conducted on minors either. The policies they oppose, including acknowledging the existence of LGBTQ plus people in schools and ensuring that trans youth have access to life-saving care as well as an equal education. Yeah, it's that simple. We deserve that. We deserve to have that. We deserve to feel as safe and protected in school as any of these other little mouth breathers.
Yep. At least that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it goes on and on. The fun part was, she threw a party and nobody came.
Exactly.
Ha, ha, ha. Ha, ha. You're an idiot. So, do you have a 15-minute fave?
I do.
Okay.
So, I was going through my music library, and Apple Music gave me all my playlists. At the end of the year, they do these are your most played songs from the past year, right? Mm-hmm. And it gave me a listing of all of them going back to like 2015. So I was like, oh, well, let me check that out, see what I was listening to in 2015. And some of these songs I never heard of before. I don't know how they made the list, but I did come across a song that I was like, ooh, well, I would have listened to this. I like this.
But this is actually a list of things you listen to.
Allegedly. Yeah, it was mostly songs that I remember playing a lot, but I don't remember this one at all, but I like it now. So there you go.
Weed is somewhere involved in this conversation. Somewhere there in the background. Just saying.
Or their algorithm is wonky.
Or it might be the algorithm. That's who's high. The algorithm is high. So anyway, did you come up with a song?
Yes. It's a fun, clubby, housey little bop called The Rumor Mill, featuring Anne Marie and Will Hurd by Rudimental. It's fun. I like it.
Well, let's play it on out to the break, and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
is on the street. I don't know how to feel about what you say to me. Cause the party pills, they won't give me no release. Nothing but a cheap thrill, no chance of a remedy, no. The bad things be spread around, no, no, let it go, just turn it down. Don't be a fool, don't be a clown, can't tell me, won't tell me nothing anyhow. Bad things be spreading around, no, no, let it go, just turn it down. Either way I'm coming round, can't tell me, won't turn me down. I don't even care about what they say. I don't even care about what they say. I don't even care about what they say, say, yeah.
It's only rumor, word is on the street. I love you so, the feeling's bittersweet. Had it lying now, I'm at the crossroad, you can't meet. Don't test me now, cause it's a test that you can't cheat.
Medway Council and Emergency Exit Arts are proud to announce that Medway Light Nights is back for another 2-day light extravaganza. This year the Light Nights will take place across central Chatham on Friday the 10th and Saturday the 11th of February between 6 and 9 p.m. So pop the dates in your diary and invite your friends and family to come and experience an amazing free light festival. Further details regarding the artistic lineup and practical information, as well as behind the scenes footage, will be posted across our social media. Look out for #LoveChatham and #Medway Light Nights. You can also find more information on Visit Medway's website, visitmedway.org.
It's time for the cavalcade of nonsense.
It is.
So, this isn't even Schadenfreude. It's, I don't even know what to call this, but so another story has come out about George Santos, allegedly stealing $3,000 from a veteran's dying dog.
Yeah, I just saw this.
Yeah, so apparently the charity he maybe did or maybe didn't run, I guess, produced a GoFundMe. U.S. Navy veteran Richard Osthoff was living in a tent in an abandoned chicken coop in New Jersey, according to Patch, with his service dog Sapphire. Sapphire developed a stomach tumor and needed surgery that Osthoff was told would cost $3,000 in 2016. He couldn't afford the surgery, but he said the vet tech told him that he knew of a guy who runs a pet charity who can help you. He was referred to Santos, who claimed he ran the charity Friends of Pets.
Now I see the connection.
Yeah, this would be one of his first dubious statements uncovered by the New York Times after he was elected to Congress. No record the charity ever was registered. Anyway, Santos, who was going by the name Anthony DeVolder at the time, helped him start a GoFundMe. In May of 2016, it met its $3,000 goal and then some. But Santos said he wouldn't use the money to pay for the surgery at the New Jersey veterinarian that the person regularly went to, and instead told him to go to a different practice in Queens, New York. It was a little hole-in-the-wall place, but looked legitimate. The vet there said he couldn't operate on the tumor, but his veterinarian had said they could operate. And then when he tried to contact Santos, he stopped regularly answering calls and texts. I'm starting to feel like I was mined for my family and friends' donations. He wrote in a November text message. They talked on the phone one last time where Santos allegedly said Osthoff didn't do things my way and said he wouldn't use the money for surgery. My dog is going to die because of God knows what. Osthoff wrote Santos in a November 2016 text message.
Yeah, I was looking at this.
Yeah, I'm sick of being jerked around. That cash was raised on her behalf. Remember, it is our credibility that got GoFundMe themselves to contribute. We are audited like every 501c3, and we are with the highest standards of integrity. Of course, again, this charity was never registered. And then the funds are moved to the next animal in need, allegedly, because your dog's not a candidate. Da, 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 da. He has text messages to prove that this all, happened. Yeah, so this goes way back, and there is no floor with this dude. None at all.
It just keeps coming.
Yeah. Sapphire died the following January, and Osthoff said he had to panhandle to pay for her euthanasia and cremation. It was one of the most degrading things I ever had to do.
Wow.
The story was confirmed by another veterinarian who was involved in the story.
That's just shameful.
Friends of Pets was never registered, but it did have a Facebook group created in 2015, archived in 2020. Santos would regularly post links to fundraisers for animals that needed medical care. Of course, Santos is not commenting on the matter. Yeah.
Ew.
Just do. I mean, there are stories and stories upon stories coming out about this dude. And, still in Congress, though.
Mm-hmm.
Still in Congress.
I suppose we'll see for how long.
Yeah, the final quote broke my heart. I love that dog so much. I inhaled her last breaths when I had her euthanized. Yeah. So, in nearby Ocean City, New Jersey, a lovely shore town where I took my children on vacation. Actually, I grew up going to the shore in Ocean City, New Jersey. A new school board is alarming both the queer community and our allies. Seems they've been infiltrated, as have many school boards, with right-wingers.
Mm-hmm. Including three parents who campaigned against New Jersey's new standards for teaching health and sexual education, and on conservative values, quote unquote, who were endorsed nationally by Moms for Liberty.
Great.
Any one of those things.
Yeah, that should have told you something.
The group set off alarm bells after appearing September 8th in a city park alongside a pastor who railed against homosexuality and mocked gay marriage. But they unseated 3 school board incumbents, a hand surgeon, an internal medicine doctor, and an attorney for Pfizer, Inc.
About 11,000 people live year-round in Ocean City. The district of 2,000 students draws from Longport, Upper Township, and Sea Isle City, as well as Ocean City.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, Jesus Christ has been mentioned. There was a rally. Feelings were raw on January 4th as the factions met across a U-shaped table at the school library, both the new members and the queer community asking for tolerance and acceptance. I have to say, oh my gosh, what am I doing sitting here, said Liz Nicoletti, one of the newly elected members. This is not something I wanted to do in my life. Then why are you doing it?
That part.
She recalled pulling her sons out of a Christian school and placing them in Ocean City, which then shut down during the pandemic. She said she was a stay-at-home mom, the best job, and mused about becoming a pickleball instructor. She bristled when people chuckled. I know we're on the conservative side of things, but we care. Please don't laugh at me, because that's disrespectful. We all deserve respect, all of us, even me.
Yeah, all right. Debatable.
While you campaigned against a law you don't understand that is actually in place to protect queer children and make all children, more tolerant, and maybe we have fewer bullies in the world. Lauren Knopp, a student representative on the board, told the room, students of this district are very stressed about the scenario that's been happening, and I'm not going to leave here without everyone knowing that. The debate echoes what's going on in other schools nearby in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, including Bucks County, which we have talked about. Nicoletti and her running mate, Catherine Panico, won 3-year terms, along with local attorney Kevin Barnes. Robin Schaefer won a 1-year seat. They want to overturn a 6-5 vote in August under the old board, approving New Jersey standards for sexual education, with guidelines that include discussing gender by the end of 2nd grade. Good. You know why you discuss it by the end of 2nd grade? Because by 4th grade, the bullies emerge.
Yep.
Hard.
Yep.
And types of intercourse by the end of middle school. Yeah, sex education. Yeah, by the end of middle school, that's a good time to have it. Districts can set their own curricula and lesson plans, which, fine, have your say there. Right. And parents can also opt their children out. That's not enough for these people.
Nope.
Newly elected school board president Chris Halliday, an Ocean City architect and father of 2, said he does not expect the issue to be raised again and is confident the district is implementing the state's guidelines appropriately. We can only hope. He said he also does not anticipate a vote on a teacher advocacy ban similar to the one adopted in Central Bucks, and in general hopes to move on to broader issues of academics and student well-being. It's been a little diffused, he said. There's been a lot of discussions and apologies. We want to make sure our teachers feel supported. This is a tourist town. We welcome people. Yeah, these 3 new board members have been mentored by longtime area conservative Seth Grossman, who runs the Liberty and Prosperity Group, and in 2018 narrowly lost an election to Jeff Van Drew, back when Van Drew was a Democrat. And, of course, Van Drew was sponsoring legislation called My Child, My Choice that would require parental approval before topics related to gender identity, sexual orientation, and transgender studies were taught. My child, my choice. Wow. Side squared off. Discussion continued to the point of exhaustion.
One of them, Pender, a 2022 graduate studying physics at Rutgers, has painstakingly sought to counter those who have spoken out against considering a person's choice of pronouns, gender identity, non-binary students, and stressed the importance of teaching about sensitive topics in public schools and respecting people's wishes.
It's like a family town, America's #1 resort. They don't want anything to do with sex. Parents don't want to deal with any LGBT issues. That's taboo to them. We want everyone to be heteronormative and cisgender. That's more the vibe. Sex education saves lives, added Pender, who came out as non-binary after graduation and uses both he and they pronouns. Sex education has always been geared toward heterosexual people. I just think it's important that kids learn that heterosexual cisgender doesn't mean normal.
That part.
That's basically it. Yeah, I guess we'll see where this goes. We'll see where it goes.
We shall see, we shall see.
Yeah. Of course, he said the issue with the state standards is age appropriateness. You know, the age of appropriateness for most of these people is like 95 fucking years old.
If that.
That's when it's appropriate to talk about us, I think.
Right.
Maybe just before death.
Yeah.
I have a real problem with pushing some of these concepts down to age 5. Then with the pushing and the shoving and the ramming and their language.
Phrasing.
I know teachers who don't feel comfortable teaching some concepts that are better left to parents. Well, you know what? The materials are available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Garden State Equality can provide all of them. And if those teachers aren't comfortable, find the ones who are.
It's as simple
There's a
as
way
that.
to work it out if you want to work it out.
Right.
If you want to actually figure out why these guidelines exist and you want to actually comply with them because you're willing to see their enormous value in terms of curtailing what we go through, the hell that we can live through in public school, then, you'll try to do that. But that's not what they're trying to do. So I guess we'll see. I think our actions will speak louder than our words. Oh, I do too. They're going to be pleasantly surprised. I doubt that. Jasmine Star Mack, became the first trans woman that we know about in 2023 to be the victim of anti-trans violence. She was violently killed in Washington, D.C., becoming the first in the United States this year. She died on January 7th, age 36, following a stab wound in her leg. No arrests have yet been made. Activists believe she was the first this year. Her sister, Pamela Witherspoon, recalled Starr as boisterous, a little wild, and a talented singer who enjoyed gospel songs and knew how to tailor old clothes into outfits that suited her statuesque frame. So the countdown starts again.
Right.
Yeah, Witherspoon, her sister, said she has endured relentless abuse and bullying. People treated her so bad because of who she was. She's been stabbed before.
Oh, Jesus.
She's been shot. She was abused. People rejected her. She just wanted to be herself. She was a sweet person. She was not mean. She just wanted a chance at life. Yeah, and all the nonsense that we cover doesn't make it any easier for us to walk around. Jasmine Star Mack.
Say their names.
Rest in power, my sister. So a gender critical activist,
Quote unquote.
has taken to quoting Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah, at a Posey Parker rally. Yeah, on camera, quoting Mein Kampf in a speech against trans rights at an anti-trans rally in Newcastle.
Yeah.
Dozens assembled outside the 1914 memorial in the gardens of St. Thomas Church in Newcastle's city centre on Sunday, the 15th of January. A huge group of counter-protesters who waved pride flags, banners, and shouted pro-LGBTQ plus chants was also in attendance and appear to have been based outside the nearby Newcastle City Council building, about 400 meters away. The event was part of the Let Women Speak tour by notorious anti-trans activist Posey Parker, and featured several gender-critical speakers who addressed the crowd in front of a large adult human female banner.
They're just saying things.
And too intentionally stupid to understand that trans people are on their side.
Right. And I hate the fact that her name is Posey Parker, because that's too close to Parker Posey, who ain't never done shit to nobody.
Well, there's that. She's a hypnosis practitioner. I know about language, and I know that this, gesturing to counter-protesters, is based on something that we call the big lie. Well, words mean nothing anymore. Concepts mean nothing anymore. They turn them on their head. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you know the big lie? The big lie was first described by Adolf Hitler in Mein Kampf. The big lie is such a big lie that ordinary people like us think, well, that can't be a lie because I would never tell such a big lie as that. We only lie in small ways. The big lie, well, there is one big lie going on, and it was begun by men in the early part of the 20th century. It began when they had an erotic fantasy, and they decided that they were going to sell us the big lie. And what is the big lie? The big lie is that trans women are women. But they're not, are they? They're men, and we know that. You fucking whore.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Once you start quoting Hitler, you kind of lose your credibility there, sis.
Well, and you know what the big lie is? The big lie is that trans people want to harm you in any way.
Right.
That there is even much alignment with cis men and trans people. Like, you fundamentally don't understand this community and you don't want to.
Right.
But you will sell the big lie that we are somehow your problem. Mm-hmm. In any way, shape, or form. And we're not.
Nope.
We're not. Nope. Yeah, you do understand the big lie conceptually, my dear, and you're perpetuating it. And God help you. God help you. Because, you know, I, in order to keep going on, I have to hope these people one day, like, wake up, realize what they've done. And it is happening, by the way.
Yeah. In drips
with
and
some of
drabs.
these gender crits. Because, you know, they weren't always this. And they slowly start to realize they've been duped by
Right.
absolute pieces of shit like this, who are so happy to have a platform. It doesn't matter what garbage they spew. It doesn't matter what violence they call for. Someone's finally paying attention to them. And it's sad. Once you quote Hitler, you've lost. I'm sorry.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Dear Christ.
This story. Anti-trans protesters promise to sue the NCAA for giving students opportunities.
Uh-huh.
It's like,
Well, I mean, that's how the headline's written. Yes.
right, what are you saying? So anti-transgender activist Riley Gaines led a protest outside of the NCAA convention last Thursday, denouncing the college sports organization for working to allow transgender students to participate in school sports.
Okay. I just want to get to why she feels like she was discriminated against.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she is a former swimmer for the University of Kentucky, right? Mm-hmm. She tied for, wait for it, 5th place
Yeah.
with Leah Thomas,
Yeah.
who also did not win that race.
Right.
They tied for 5th. Doesn't talk about losing to 4 cisgender women at all in the
Right.
same goddamn race.
Right.
But she has found a reason to be an activist, and we're giving her light and air and talking about this at all.
Yeah. Tied for 5th.
Tied for 5th. Leah Thomas didn't even beat her. They tied.
For
What
5th.
you mad about, girlfriend? What exactly are you mad about?
It's a good ass question.
You don't even know. Yeah, you've got this manufactured anger because you can. And it gives you 15 minutes. Good on you, sweetie. Good on you.
That was the part that stuck out to me. It's like, you're mad. You tied for 5th, and you're so mad that you have to sue people. Like, if that's not ridiculous white entitlement.
Yeah. Today we intend to personally tell the NCAA to stop discriminating. We don't know what words mean. All these white girls are now being discriminated against. I love it. Against female athletes by handing them, typo, a petition that we have garnered nearly 10,000 signatures. Oh, good. In just a couple days. Wow.
I'm sure they know 10,000 people.
They updated their policy, the NCAA, last year. They decided to take a sport-by-sport approach, which the Olympic uses. And trans athletes are playing by the rules. Even as they keep moving the bar, they're playing by the rules.
Right.
And they're not winning every race. They're just being able to play.
Right.
What the fuck is wrong with this country?
That's a good-ass question.
Because this even matters. Okay. This story is going to lead us into a bigger story. Tory Scotland's secretary asked to explain what a gender recognition certificate does. And he failed.
Yep.
Alistair Jack floundered when questioned on gender recognition certificates following his move to ban Scottish reform. He faced questions in the Commons on January 17th after he confirmed he would make a Section 35 order, a never-before-utilized section of the 1998 Scotland Act, to prevent the Gender Recognition Reform Bill in Scotland from becoming law. The measure, which passed in December, would expedite and simplify the process by which trans people can obtain a gender recognition certificate. Jack said he believed the changes would have adverse effects on the operation of the UK Equality Act and operations of single-sex spaces. Scottish politicians and experts agree that the bill would have no impact on either, and much of the rhetoric around gender recognition reform confuses what a GRC actually does. He was pressed on this by MP Kirsty Blackman, who was wearing a lanyard in the colors of the trans pride flag. Quote, "Against a rising background of hate crime, my trans siblings will be horrified and terrified at the level of misinformation and lies in this chamber today," Blackman said. Given that the Secretary of State has had lots of legal advice on this, presumably, he's had briefings on this, could he tell us what is the effect of a gender recognition certificate? What does it entitle someone to do? Jack fumbled with his response and avoided the question. Well, we believe you'll see the reasons. I made this very clear. This is a reduction in safeguards for women and children, and you will have plenty of time to read that today. Blackman could be seen on the parliamentary live broadcast gesturing in bewilderment at the reply. Having a GRC allows trans people to update their birth certificate, get married, or form a civil partnership in their affirmed gender, update their marriage or civil partnership certificate, and have their affirmed gender on their death certificate. Let me read that again. Having a GRC allows trans people to update their own birth certificate, get married or form a civil partnership in their affirmed gender, update their marriage or civil partnership certificate, and have their affirmed gender on their death certificate.
I don't see the problem.
You tell me where women and children are affected in any fucking way by this.
Right.
How this has anything to do with single-gendered spaces or whatever they're saying, or how this has any impact on any other ruling. It doesn't. Despite what Jack argued, the Reform Bill has absolutely no impact on the UK Equality Act. None. It's not a condition of access to single-sex spaces, and protections for trans people under the Equality Act are not contingent on having a GRC to begin with. The majority of trans people don't even hold one. All the reform would do is make it easier to access the certificate I just described.
Right.
The bill would remove the need for a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria from the process, good, and lower the age that people can apply down from 18 to 16. Also good, and completely in keeping with all expert guidelines.
Right.
This is the first ever use of Section 35 since devolution of power to the Scottish Parliament under the Scotland Act of 1998. This is the first time they decided to use this unprecedented measure. The Act gives the UK government the power to intervene on bills which the Secretary of State has reasonable grounds to believe would be incompatible with any international obligations or the interest of defense or national security. Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon branded the move as a full-front attack on our democratically elected Scottish Parliament and its ability to make its own decision on devolved matters. Agreed! Elsewhere in the debate, Labour MP Lloyd Russell Moyle blasted the UK government for blocking the measure when it has still failed to meaningfully reform the UK Gender Recognition Act, something promised by Theresa May as Prime Minister. She's gone already, but...
Right.
The real truth of the GRA discussion is that almost 5 years ago, the government opened up a consultation for GRA reform and did sweet nothing on it. Opened up that Pandora's box of fear and hate and misinformation, he said. Amen. And then when one part of our country takes action, which we all should have taken action, they want to use it for a constructive constitutional crisis. He continued, "It is not time that this government bring forward proper GRA reform that includes the bases that are laid out in the Scotland Act and put to bed once and for all the lie that this is about equalities." He continued, "Is it not time that this government bring forward proper GRA reform that includes the bases that are laid out in the Scotland Act and put to bed once and for all the lie that this is about equalities?" In 2017, then Prime Minister Theresa May promised to reform the GRA, and there was a consultation launched to tackle the process the following year. These plans were ditched by Liz Truss and Boris Johnson, of course.
There you go.
Serving as Equality Minister and Prime Minister. Campaigners have long called the UK's gender recognition laws, which are vastly out of date and do not align with international best practice, to be modernized.
But yeah, it's like these people, both abroad and here apparently, they're so conditioned to respond with buzzwords and phrases when they hear certain things that they don't even stop to think about what they're saying, what it means in the context of the particular conversation. It's like a Pavlovian thing. You hear trans and they go, "Women and children, ah!" Doesn't matter if it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. You hear A, you say B.
Kind of. And that leads us briefly to the story that the UK government, blocks Scotland's gender reform bill in a constitutional first.
Right.
This is all they have to worry about. This is top of mind.
Right.
There is nothing untoward or ridiculous or threatening to anyone in attempting to follow best practices in obtaining this certificate. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. There is no reason for this to be happening whatsoever other than this rabid bullshit. Watch the trans people so you don't see us robbing you.
That part.
Look over there. Be afraid. While we're in the UK, the years-long NHS waiting times for trans healthcare are apparently totally lawful, according to a high court.
Yeah.
This from January 16th. The long-waited times faced by trans people seeking gender-affirming care have been deemed lawful. Last year, 4 trans people, trans-led charity Gendered Intelligence, and the Good Law Project were given permission to mount a groundbreaking judicial review against NHS England. The groups who mounted the cases are set to appeal this ruling, of course. The legal challenge was brought on the grounds that waiting times faced by trans people accessing affirming health care at gender identity clinics were unlawful. So, and here's the thing, there's a statute. The NHS has a statutory requirement that at least 92% of patients using the healthcare service should have a referral to treatment time of no more than 18 weeks. Statutory. However, thousands of trans people in England face extensive waiting lists, between 3 and 5 years, depending on what part of the country they live in, for even an initial appointment at one of the NHS's gender identity clinics. Can I tell you what 3 to 5 years means to a child going through puberty? Can I tell you what it means?
I can but imagine.
Yeah. The judge, Mr. Justice Chamberlain, that's funny, dismissed the claims on a number of grounds and concluded that while the NHS has a duty to ensure the 18-week target is met, failure to achieve that standard is not a breach. What is it then? Why have guidelines at all?
Right.
Court documents show that the judge cited several reasons for the long waits, including increased demand for the service and trouble employing specialists. The evidence has shown that long waiting times have increased despite the NHS's willingness to increase very substantially the resources available for the service area. Okay, not enough. The Good Law Project said they were disappointed to lose the case, especially when the loss impacts on people already discriminated against in society. Their legal director said this result is obviously a deep disappointment for us and the trans community. It's our first loss in this space, having previously brought 2 successful cases. We have decided to appeal this decision, and good. Claimant, I want to say Eva, it might be Eva Echo, an activist and public speaker, said, "I'm extremely disappointed by the decisions overall, which only serve to prolong the mental health suffering of the trans community, and I welcome the chance to appeal. I also welcome clarification that trans youths are protected under the Equality Act of 2010, which will provide more people with protection against discrimination." Responding to the ruling, Stonewall's chief executive, Nancy Kelly, said, "Really disappointed to see the judge say that waiting years and years for a first appointment is lawful. Trans people aren't second-class citizens, and they deserve better than this."
Yeah, really.
It's in nonsense because it's nonsense, people. It's utter and complete nonsense.
Right. And we can't call it bullshit.
Well, we can, because it is.
I mean, the segment.
Conservative activist Matt Schlapp says he is now in unbearable pain after a male groping accusation. Now, I want to point out who he is.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because schlap sounds like the sound a penis makes when it hits your face.
Uh-huh. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I'm just picturing the fiction. And then his member met my cheek with a wet, meaty schlap.
Okay. So I want to point out, so you've heard of CPAC?
Yes.
Okay. This dude is the chairman. Matt Schlapp is a Fox News commentator and lobbyist with strong ties to the Trump administration. He is the chairman of the American Conservative Union, sponsor of the annual right-wing Conservative Political Action Conference.
Yeah.
CPAC. That's who this dude is.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So let's continue on with our, because he's in unbearable pain right now. Because a male staffer, actually a male staffer from the Herschel Walker campaign.
Oh, it gets better and better.
It just gets better and better. Says he was groped. In early January, a male staffer who worked for Herschel Walker's failed Senate campaign accused Schlapp of groping him without his consent. The staffer alleged to the Daily Beast that on October 19th, Schlapp, who had come to Atlanta for a Walker campaign event, sexually assaulted him while he was driving him back to his hotel from a bar. The staffer said Schlapp groped and fondled his genitals in the car and that his actions were sustained and unwanted and unsolicited.
Ooh.
The staffer said he was in shock and frozen when dude subsequently invited him up to his hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
He said no and fled. The same night, Schlapp called the staffer to confirm he would still drive him to an event the following day.
Huh.
Yeah, he got somebody else to drive. Quote, Matt Schlapp of the CPAC grabbed my junk and pummeled it at length, and I'm sitting there thinking what the hell is going on, that this person is literally doing this to me.
Pummeled it?
That's what he said. From the bar to the Hilton Garden Inn, he has his hands on me, and I feel so fucking dirty. I feel so fucking dirty. I'm supposed to pick this motherfucker up in the morning and just pretend like nothing happened. The staffer shared his text exchange with Schlapp with the Daily Beast. Schlapp had repeatedly begged him to call, and the staffer never did. An official from Walker's campaign confirmed the staffer's story and said the campaign had helped the staffer seek legal counsel after the incident. He said the campaign was extremely supportive and gave him complete autonomy. Good. The lawsuit filed by the staffer accuses Schlapp's wife, Mercedes, of defamation and conspiracy to discredit the accuser. Mercedes Schlapp was also a White House Director of Strategic Communications under President Donald Trump. Of course she was.
I'm still on pummeled.
Pummeled, yeah.
That doesn't sound pleasurable for anyone.
I know. You know what's really interesting is, yeah, and he's the one that brought the dude from Hungary over to the CPAC conference, and he's all about all that totalitarianism and shit. And I'll tell you all day long what a Catholic he is, and we know how that goes. The staffer is in his late 30s, self-identifies as straight, married to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Schlapp had invited him out for drinks to discuss the staffer's professional future.
I bet.
In the course of their bar hopping, the staffer recalled Schlapp inappropriately and repeatedly intruding into his personal space. The staffer reports being keenly aware of the power dynamic at play in this rapidly escalating, uncomfortable situation. Being highly influential in the Republican and conservative realm, Schlapp could either boost the staffer's status or nip his advancement in the bud. Harvey Weinstein.
Yep.
After multiple rounds of alcohol, Schlapp persisted in making overt, aggressive, and unwelcome physical advances, etc. etc. You know, he did record several tearful video accounts immediately, which he shared with close friends, his wife, and ultimately the Daily Beast. Yeah. Again, this is one of those stories where I don't give a fuck what Matt Schlapp might do in private, but he actively does run an organization that would see us all dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let this play out.
Mm-hmm.
Let it play out. And do I believe this person? I do.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
Of course.
Oh, my God, I do. I mean, I have been in this place. male identified people get sexually assaulted too. And they're
It's
less
true.
likely to come forward, and they're less likely to talk about it. Especially this dude who's married, who says this is all coming out of left field entirely. Yeah, I imagine he feels all kind of ways. Mm-hmm. And of course, Matt Slab is just devastated that anyone would ever say this. Mm-hmm. It's a he said.
Right.
But I'm more inclined to believe it because it's a fucking Herschel Walker staffer. This is not some left-wing Democrat out to condemn him. This is somebody aligned with him. Aligned with this kind of ideology.
Not to mention this.
And please understand, no one ever deserves to be sexually assaulted in any way. It's ridiculous, awful behavior. My point is, what are we going to say? We can't call this political.
Right.
This guy's just making it up. Why? Because he looks good in this? He somehow looks like some hero? That's ridiculous.
Not to mention, this is a tale as old as time. You have these right-wing people that rally against anything not straight. Meanwhile, they're repressing every little inclination that they've had since the age of 6. And then one day, they just can't take it and it bubbles over. And a staffer or an aide just looks too good. And it all comes rushing out in this clumsy, ham-fisted ass
This
assault.
guy is probably used to getting what he wants. He probably felt a certain vibe. He was attracted to this guy and he went for it.
Right.
And usually it works for him. It probably usually works. You know what I mean? He normally probably winds up with someone in his hotel room.
Right.
Whether the dude is uncomfortable straight or what, he probably winds up getting what he wants because of his power. The behavior doesn't surprise me at all. And I believe it's true? Yeah, unless there's some really strong, compelling evidence. Why would this dude make it up? Why?
Right. I'm just thinking because, pummeling. That sounds like inexperience or someone that's used to doing something over and over again and not being told anything one way or the
somebody
other.
who's really trying to get the dude hard. You know what I mean? I mean, whatever, choice of words, awkward or not.
Ew.
He was, probably trying to prove that, look, you're excited and now we can get off and then we'll pretend it never happened. You know how that works.
Yeah. Again, tale as old as time. So
It is a tale as old as time. It's happened to me more times than I, care to talk about. This kind of behavior I'm quite familiar with.
right.
Quite familiar with. And, and these dudes who run these conservative organizations, who rally around the flag and family values, are usually the dudes who do it.
Yep.
That's some nonsense. I hope it all comes to light. I hope it reflects accurately on CPAC, as it should.
Exactly.
We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and cleanse our palates.
Hallelujah. 'Cause nyam, nyam, nyam.
I know, yeah.
Did you grow up with a lack of parental supervision?
Do you know all the lyrics to The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Remember Mayor McCheese and the Fry Guys?
Have an inexplicable love for the California Raisins?
Can you remember Madonna's original face?
Then you might be a part of the Doom generation.
Laugh until you cry with us each week as we stumble blindly through the memories of the movies
And other random things
that doomed us to be the salty, sarcastic, sardonic ladies you want to hang with.
You know us, you love us, you can't fucking live without us.
Doom Generation, available everywhere you find podcasts.
And we're back.
We're back.
I've gargled. Gargled, flossed, put the water pick on high.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I feel better now. So, the sad part of pop culture we should get out of the way first. Lisa Marie Presley died very suddenly at 54.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 2 days after we saw her at the Golden Globes.
2 days after the Golden Globes. Yeah. Yeah. Very sad. Very sad.
She was young.
Yeah, that's young. Especially from over here.
Shoot.
But yeah, it's a shame. I mean, storied life and lots of challenges too. Just being the daughter of Elvis Presley and, you know, but I think she did certainly try to put out some good in the world, and she's had a hard time. Her son committed suicide in 2020, I think, and things haven't been the same since then. You know, she took that really, really hard, and it's just a shame. You know?
It is a shame.
Just a shame. So, rest in peace, Lisa Marie Presley.
It was interesting seeing her when she was married to Michael Jackson. Like, she was the normal one in the relationship.
I know. I know. I don't even know how to speak on that.
Like, and I think it was
like,
Diane.
what?
I think it was Diane Sawyer that they were on together, and watching her like rein him in. Like, if you don't sit your ass down,
We have to pretend this is a marriage. You're not making it easy.
right? Chaw.
I believe that they should have been like lifelong friends. I think I don't get the marriage part of it at all, but they certainly, you know, there are reasons they should have understood one another well, because they lived a particular life.
Right.
You know, very much in the public eye, very much growing up in the public eye. So I got the friendship part of it. I never understood the marriage part of it, but what do I know?
I remember, I think it was the VMAs, they came out together and made a point of like this big old sloppy kiss, and everyone being like, why are we doing this right now? Child. Anyway, it's very sad and sudden, and, you know, our hearts are with her family.
Yeah. So this was just sweet. Holland Taylor turned 80 on Saturday, January 14th. And her partner, Sarah Paulson, does an annual birthday message. And it was just so sweet. She uploaded a close-up photo of Holland Taylor, and she captioned it. "You were sitting at the counter not 15 feet from me, drinking your chocolate coffee as usual. I am happiest this way, you near. I can list all the ways in which you matter, ways you've contributed to the lives of those around you, as well as the world at large. You've changed me in all the important ways. Sharing my life with you has made everything else make sense. Thank you for loving me. I will never be the same." How sweet.
It's very sweet.
How sweet.
There's a 32-year age gap between the two of them.
You know, there is. And a lot of people have questioned that. They've been together almost 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Paulson has always been quick to defend the relationship. And she said, "If anyone wants to spend any time thinking I'm strange for loving the most spectacular person on the planet, then that's their problem. Right. I'm doing just fine."
Yeah, I was thinking about that today. Like, you know, I obviously don't have any judgment towards relationships where there's an age difference. You know, like we have a 10-year age difference between the two of us, which usually I don't even notice. 30 years. I was just wondering, like, is that like when it's two women, does that like make I don't know. It's just interesting.
Why would it?
Well, because women are like smarter and more patient, and like, so certain things are more easily negotiated.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. It just seemed interesting because, like, you don't often see relationships with that big of an age gap where, you know, it's just chill. Like,
in a few years, we'll ask Cher. There's a 40-year difference there. And
right.
That's with a young man.
Right.
I mean, we've seen plenty of May, December things. You know, some of them do run a course, but some last forever.
Right. It's just interesting. Like, it's just not something you see a relationship with that big of a gap. But I guess in this case, like, neither one of them has anything to prove to anybody.
No.
It's cool. I love it.
Right.
It's just interesting.
I'm just like, so what?
Yeah. It's just interesting as something that you don't see that often. That's all.
Sarah Paulson's a really smart 48-year-old, so maybe she didn't find any other 48-year-olds she was particularly stimulated with. And
That's true, because if you're a certain level of smart, like, you might need someone that's a few decades older than yourself to have the same level of intellectual maturity.
yeah, and I know old people that have been living the same year for decades, so they're not necessarily, there's not much of an age gap.
Right.
It's not like and I'm not saying this about Holland Taylor. I'm just saying in general, I have met old people who have, not necessarily grown with time. They've just existed longer.
Right.
It's like that happens too. But this always did seem like a love affair. And good on them.
It's sweet.
It's very sweet. And I love that. I love that message. And, who is anyone to say? And that's really what it comes down to. You know what I mean? When two people find each other, it ain't nobody else's business.
Exactly. Like I said, like, I've rarely noticed the difference in our ages. The only thing is, like, you have a significantly less level of tolerance for my bullshit.
Well,
that's where I notice it. It's like,
okay.
Well, damn.
Well, what can I tell you? No, but it's interesting to me because, I spend so much time thinking about, like, so what is the problem really with gender diversity? What Joe and Jenny cross the way. What is their issue with gender diversity?
Right.
Are they afraid that, little Johnny is going to grow up and be all confused because he's attracted to a trans woman or a non-binary person? Or like what's going to happen? We might not have grandchildren. Like what is their thing? Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. How are you threatened by the existence of queer people? How are you threatened by anyone else's relationship, assuming it is not interfering with yours?
Right.
Like the whole fight against same-sex marriage, it was like, don't get gay married then.
Right.
Like, if that really does threaten your marriage, you got other problems.
I always think of Wanda Sykes talking about, if you have a problem with gay marriage, don't marry a gay person. I think the biggest threat to straight marriage is divorce, because that's what fucked up my marriage.
Right. How about it? And that Jesus had a lot to say about. Divorce.
Yeah.
Not queer people. Not being gay. Not being trans. In fact, he didn't really speak on us.
Nope.
He did tell y'all not to do that more than once.
Yep.
And yet they have found the loophole time and time and time and time and time again. Funny how Christianity works sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's my, one of my thoughts for the day. Like, if it ain't your business, it ain't your business.
Right.
If you ain't either Holland Taylor or Sarah Paulson, keep it pushing.
Right.
Wish them well.
And I do.
Go on about your business.
Yep.
I wish them well.
As do I. Go ahead, y'all.
Yeah. So
the Golden Globes are always an indicator of, the Oscars. And we like to check out movies that we haven't seen.
Oh, God. Yeah, we do.
That, especially ones that do well in the award circuit.
And we did.
And so we saw The Banshees of Inisherin.
That Irish movie.
Because, it won Best Comedy or musical Golden Globe, and it won...
What was the comedy?
and Colin Farrell won for Best Actor.
I know. Why?
I mean,
Oh my God.
from an acting point of view, they did a great job.
Okay.
Just like remember the remember
Okay.
The Way of the Dog or whatever the fuck that was called,
Something like that.
and it won for
It won for something.
Best Director, and I said yes, we hated the fucking movie, but the direction was stellar. Same with this. It's like the performances were great. It's just
okay.
the final product just
It went nowhere. It depressed the hell out of me.
yeah. You had a
And I will never
bit
get
of a response.
those 2 hours back.
I did
That's
not.
all I have to say about that film.
I did not hate it nearly as hard and with as much fervor and fire as you.
Oh my God. It was just all, it's like once you're in a pit of awful and it never gets any different, it just stays awful. It's like, wow. Like I'm sorry. I need something to pep me up and keep me going. I need triumph of the human spirit. Something. I still don't understand what that was. That was telling you, I don't know, live among more than 4 people.
Yeah.
Or something. I guess if there was, I realize films exist that don't have a message, but this was just one of those.
You got to admit
I don't even want to keep talking about it.
The cinematography was great, though. You
it was
admit.
a pretty film, I guess. Yeah, I guess if you run it without the sound. But there's still shit that's not going to make sense. There's still stuff you're going to go, what is he throwing?
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the whole thing was just, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm sorry I did it. I don't want to talk about it after this.
Right.
Other than to warn people.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite films. But, Well,
Ugh.
we were going through HBO.
10 minutes in, I was like, I know I'm not going to like this. and that's just where I stayed.
We were going through
I
HBO
stuck with
last
it.
night.
It's an award winner and all.
And we were like marveling at the way they were categorizing certain movies. Like going through comedy, it's like, how the fuck is that a comedy? How is that a comedy? That's not even a comedy. Like the Craft was under comedy, and I'm like, no. And this movie, I don't see it as a comedy. There were moments where I laughed.
At the absurdity of it?
Right.
Okay.
Like some things happened where it was just so odd or strange or ridiculous, you just had no choice but to laugh at it.
I get my fill of absurdity on C-SPAN these days. Like, that's not what I go to film for.
Because I feel
guess.
like...
I don't know what else to say.
I feel like the basis for a film being a comedy is, like, the purpose of it is to make you laugh. Like, if it's a film where there are moments that happen that cause you to laugh, I don't know if that really counts as a comedy, but...
I'd love to hear a counterpoint, but, yeah. Because who said, but Colin Farrell's cute? And I'm like, he wasn't that cute. He's not that cute. Nobody is that cute.
Colin Farrell was my bad boy boyfriend when he first came out.
Yeah, but nobody is that cute.
Yeah.
Nobody.
So this is a do not recommend from Marge.
I do not recommend. I mean, go ahead and do it if you want to. I mean, like, go ahead. It can't be that bad. Go ahead, try it. Go ahead, do it. I mean, who am I to say? I promise you I won't watch it again. Right. But oof.
I'm not sorry that I watched it as much as you are, but it is not something that I rush to watch again ever.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love beautiful little low-budget films. I love, I don't know. But this was just so depressing. And I do not need to be depressed. I do not need fuel for depression. And somebody spent a lot of money to make that and make it happen and nominate that shit. And it won stuff.
It beat Everything Everywhere
And
all at once.
I refuse. I refuse to say it's, I don't get it. I'm a consumer of the arts. When I don't get your art at any level, I think it's bad art. Personally, I'm gonna stick with that because this was. Oh, ugh. I haven't hated a movie that much, and I can't tell you how long. Where I was just like, oh my God, please.
Well, you haven't hated a movie that you actually watched from beginning to end that much.
Right, but I mean, there have been a couple. Like, we disagree about War of the Roses, and that is just such a dark, awful movie.
I don't
And I
agree
think
that
it's
it's
'cause
awful.
I
love the dark comedy is one of my favorite genres.
Okay, you've never been married, first of all. We'll just start there.
Okay.
Maybe it hit a little too close to home.
Fair.
Perhaps. It was
Fair.
just dark and awful.
Okay.
Yeah, that one stuck with me as a movie I will never watch again. I loved everyone. I loved the people in it, and I was like, okay, maybe. And then, and there's one Janine Garofalo movie, and it doesn't matter that I can't remember what it's called, but it was probably the worst movie I've ever seen, and that was again dark and went nowhere and just landed nowhere, and it was just awful. I was like, oh, okay, good. Life is awful. Which is how I thought about the Irish movie.
The Banshees of Inisherin.
That one. That one. Yeah. Terrible. Terrible, terrible.
So the jury is still out on Velma. We watched the first 2 episodes that were released.
Well, your jury's still out. Well, because you care.
Well, all right.
So you should talk about this, because I don't care. It was fine.
It was, I mean...
It wasn't... It was fine.
It was okay.
It didn't bother me.
I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. But, I'm going to give it another couple of episodes before I decide, unequivocally, am I going to stop watching this or keep watching it?
Okay.
But there's a lot of ridiculous hate going on about the show, which I can't help but think is fueled by racism and homophobia. But, because Velma in this telling is Southeast Asian, and Shaggy, who's going by Norval in this, which is Shaggy's actual name, is black. Fred is like this total like childish, spoiled rich kid, like to the point of ridiculousness. Daphne is Asian, voiced by Constance Wu, which makes me happy. It's interesting. Like what they've done with it, they've obviously made it for adults. And, visually it's cool. I'm just not sure how I feel about it altogether yet. Like Velma is not very likable, but that's supposed to be the point.
Yeah, and the whole thing about, oh no, I can't solve mysteries. Like that whole storyline just bothered me.
Right.
But,
We'll
I mean, it
figure-
was fine. It was something up in the background while I scroll. It didn't bother me like the Irish thing did.
Right. So
It's fine. If it's your thing, you might be interested.
I'll check it out because it's similar to other things. Like it gets compared to the Harley Quinn series, which I did enjoy a lot.
Okay.
I haven't seen the newest season yet, but like that's fun. Like it's irreverent, it's adult humor, it's funny, it's silly. Like I like that, and I feel like this is going to be that.
Okay.
But I don't know. We'll see.
It's so, I don't know, not my genre. It's fine. It's fine. I defer to you.
Yeah.
It's a cartoon.
Right. That's where we are with pop culture.
I guess so.
Yeah.
We haven't watched anything else, have we?
No, we're finally catching up on Abbott Elementary.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are doing that.
Because we just managed to
We didn't
miss out on the entire second season.
second season.
When it was first run, and we're finally catching up.
I prefer it one at a time to binging it.
I get that.
Yeah. I prefer it as a now and again thing.
Because that style of humor, like the cringy, awkward style of humor, it can be much after a bit. But this season is better than last season, and that's saying something because last season was cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this season is better because they get to flesh out the characters more, and we get to learn more about them.
Yeah.
But they're not trying to make Ava more likable. Child.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what bothers me about
She's
the whole
becoming a
thing.
cartoonish caricature of herself.
Right. And
she didn't need help in that area.
yeah.
That's my big thing.
Yeah, and I don't know what that says. I mean, we live in the shadow of the Philadelphia school system. It is fraught with, issues and has been for a very long time. Is a principal like Ava possible? Maybe. It's still not entertaining me. I mean, like, the comedian is funny, but after a while, it's like, okay, that's fine. That's
I do love how...
Because it's just constant absurdity.
Right. I do love how Philly the show is. Like, in the first episode,
it is.
They got a shout out to Danny's Wok, which... I want Danny Wok wings now. I haven't had them in so long. But anyway.
God only knows what that would do to your system at this point, but okay.
I know. That's... well...
But yeah, I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
They do a pretty good job of being local.
Yeah. I appreciate it. So I'm glad we're catching up with that.
And that's part of the fun of watching it.
Yeah. It's fun. I'm digging it.
Okay. I think that's all I have for this week.
Yeah. So until next time.
I am Martha Madrigal.
And I am Charles Tyson Jr.
And you've been listening to Full Circle,
the podcast.
Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful week.
Bye, y'all.
And we'll be back. Bye.
Full Circle is a Never Scared Productions podcast, hosted by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, produced and edited by Never Scared. Executive produced by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal. Our theme and music is by the Jingleberries. All names, pictures, audio, and video clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.